Today we have a guest speaker here at St. Jude's School, and you can see he's standing right behind me. His name is Michael Eisen, and Michael's going to talk to you about probably stuff you've heard before in one way or another, but he has a very unique way of presenting it. And a lot of it has to do about yourself as a person, and how you treat yourself and treat each other. And he's going to share some journeys that he had growing up. And so I'd like you to listen, to respond appropriately, and to give him a big St. Jude welcome.
Thank you. How are we doing today? Are we awake? Are we alive? Yeah? All right. Good. So, my name is Michael Eisen. I run an organization called the Youth Wellness Network. So what I do is I bring wellness programs into schools and youth organizations all over North America. And the primary purpose is to inspire and empower young people to live happier, more positive, more fulfilling lives. Everything that I do is all based on really the learning that I've gone through over the past 27 years. 27, not that much older than you, so don't worry about it. And really I'm here to share with you a story of what I went through when I was young, all the way up through my preteen years and into my teenage years. Challenges with being bullied, challenges with having low self-esteem, challenges with being stressed out, anxious, pressure, what am I going to do with myself, what am I going to do in the world, all these questions which ultimately led to a big climax, which I will share with you, and then how I was able to overcome a lot of those challenges, and how I got to the point where I am right now, where I'm now going around to schools all over North America, sharing this positive message in hopes that you'll be able to learn something at a younger age than I did, so that you don't have to actually go through a lot of the pain and the suffering that I did when I was your age, younger, and even older. So, without further ado, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. So, for me, my story all started when I was 2 years old. Actually, my mom used to say that the first 2 years of my life was like the quiet before the storm. And whenever I was able to start walking and talking, it was like all chaos broke loose in my house. I was that kid who, when my sister and brother were sitting quietly on the couch watching TV, would come over with a big toy in my hand and start smashing them on the head. Yep, I was that kid. There was a joke in my family that my terrible twos came, stayed a little longer, stayed a little longer, stayed a little longer, and finally left when I was 13 years old. So, at the time, all of the self-help books would basically label me as being a spirited child, which basically meant that I didn't listen to anybody. I had to do things my own way. I had to live life to the beat of my own drum. Didn't listen to my parents, didn't listen to siblings, didn't listen to teachers, didn't listen to friends. I had to be, doing things in my own specific way. But the challenge behind all of that was that once I was labeled being spirited, I felt different. I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I was the outcast. I felt like I was the outcast in my family. And unfortunately, it carried through into my school years as well. In grade school, for the majority of my K through 8, if not more so than that, I was bullied. Whether I was too sensitive, I was too chunky, or I happened to be, a minority in a town that wasn't really so open to that, whatever it was just this constant feeling of isolation. Just feeling like nobody gets me, nobody understands me, why can't anybody see me for who I am, why can't anybody really like me, respect me, why can't I fit in anywhere? Until I actually got into grade 8 and it was like the climax of it all, and any friends that I had built up to that point completely abandoned me. So here I am in grade 8, I'm like 13 years old, and I'm trying to go play soccer on the playground like I normally would, and nobody picks me on their team. But not only does nobody pick me on their team, but they don't even acknowledge me. I'll go up and ask, and it's like they pretended that I wasn't even there. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced something like that, but it's extremely painful, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I spent the majority of that year hiding in the bathroom on recess because I couldn't take the shame of being by myself on the playground. I used to get my mom to drive me to school at the bell because, again, I couldn't take that feeling of complete isolation, of being completely alone. It was like everybody's judging eyes were on me, and it was too painful to take. That year was definitely one of the worst years of my life. Unfortunately, I grew up in a small little town, and the worst part about growing up in a small town is that when you get labeled, those labels stick with you. So I go off to high school hoping that I'm going to get this fresh start, but it's more the same. More being picked on, more being bullied, more self-judgment and self-criticism. I actually developed this voice inside of my head that would question whether I wanted to say something. So I would be in class, I would be in a group of people at lunch, and I would have this like funny joke or this witty comment, and then the voice in my head would say, "Are you sure you want to say that? You know, what are people gonna say? How are they gonna react? What are they gonna think of you? How are they gonna see you?" And I started judging myself over and over and over again, and I just actually stopped sharing. After spending the majority of grade 9 and 10, just trying so hard, you know, like why can't anybody just see me for who I am? Why can't anybody appreciate me, respect me? Why can't I get the validation that I deserve? I didn't have any of these answers. And I got into grade 11, and I became completely depressed. And I disconnected from everyone and everything. And I spent the majority of that year on my couch, watching movies, watching TV shows, hoping and praying that my life would miraculously change and become what I was watching on TV. Now the worst part about this whole thing for me is that the shame prevented me from actually sharing with anybody what was going on. So I couldn't tell my parents, well, because you guys know, parents are parents, you know? They don't get me. You know, they're the ones who tried to make me into somebody that I didn't feel like I was from the beginning. So I couldn't trust them. Couldn't trust my older siblings because they were just too caught up in their own lives and their own issues. I couldn't trust friends at school because were they even friends? I mean, everything that I had told them up to this point, they would turn on me. It would somehow backfire. So I couldn't share with anybody. So I kept all of it inside. All the pain, all the shame, everything. Couldn't share with anybody. And really, what saved me that year, as corny as this sounds, is my family dog. Anybody in the room have pets? Okay, anybody have ever had a dog before? Okay, so there's a few who've had a dog before. So you know, the beautiful thing about a dog, as you know, is that they only know how to respond in one way. Unconditional love and unconditional understanding. So here I am, I'm in grade 11, and the only living creature that I can talk to is this toy poodle named Brandy. And here I am, pouring my heart out, letting all my anger, letting all my sadness, letting all my frustration out to this dog, Brandy. You know, it's just like, it's just me and you, Brandy, it's just me and you. And as corny as it sounds, it was like, he knew what I was going through. Like these eyes, it was just everything that I would pour on him, he would just respond the same way. These understanding eyes and this big lick to my face. I mean, seriously, if that's not the perfect formula for friendship, then what, right? We all want to be licked in the face and be understood. No, is it just me who wants that? Okay. All right, maybe it's just me. So, Brandy basically gets me through grade 11. And the light at the end of the tunnel going into grade 12 is this belief in my head that says if I get good grades, if I do well in school, then I'll be able to get a degree. If I get, well, I'll be able to get my diploma. And then if I get a diploma, I'll be able to go on to university, and I'll be able to get a degree. If I get a degree in university, then I can get a job. If I get a job, then I can make lots of money. If I make lots of money, then I can buy all of these things and these experiences and the houses and the cars and the vacation homes and the etc. Oh, and then I can find a partner. I can have kids. I can watch my kids grow up. They'll grow old. They'll move out of the house. They'll go off to school. Then I'll retire and then I'll be happy. Sound familiar, maybe? I mean, this is what was going through my head in grade 12. And one of the interesting things that I've seen working with youth all over North America is that this story, or some variation of it, is being run through the minds of younger people at a younger age. And hopefully we're going to be able to turn that around today. So I get into grade 12 and I work harder than I've ever done before. I'm studying like nobody else. And I get the grades, but they come at a cost. This time it's my stomach. So not only am I mentally and emotionally imbalanced right now, but my stomach starts acting up. And I actually get physically ill from all the stress and the anxiety and the pressure that I'm putting on myself to get those grades. Because quite literally, if I didn't get those grades, I believe that my life was over. Because not only did I need to get the grades and be successful, and you know the rest of that story, but I needed to get myself out of this town. Because at this point, I felt like I was a victim. I was a victim to the people around me. I was a victim to my school. I was a victim to my parents. I was a victim to society. I wasn't willing to take any responsibility for anything. I thought it was everybody else's fault. So I get the grades and I get off to university. I move off to Montreal. I get into McGill University. Pretty proud of myself. And first year of university, it's like exactly what I needed. It's like my restart. It's like my coming out party. Because for the first time in my life, nobody knows who I am. So there's no judgments, there's no labels. I got a chance to basically remake my life. I got a chance to realize that I was the funny guy. I got a chance to realize that I was a social guy. I got a chance to try on all these different personalities that I had never tried on before. Made friends from all over the world. Had so much fun, but the only catch was, I forgot to study. And so that belief system comes back into my head. Michael, you better get good grades. If you don't get good grades, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to get all the things you need. So I actually started to feel guilty for having fun. First time in my life, I felt fun, and I felt guilty for it. So I go into second year, and I put an enormous amount of pressure on myself. You've got to get these grades. If you don't get these grades, then your life is over. And now, it's for real. I'm working harder than anybody. I'm that guy who you would come up to before the test and ask how to do a question, I would tell you to do it perfectly. But for some reason, when I got into that test and I saw a question I didn't know the answer to, I freaked out. I had a panic attack. Why? Because the voice in my head kept saying, if you don't get this grade, if you don't get this grade, if you don't get this grade, your life is over. Now, not to mention the panic attacks, and I'm not actually doing well on my test, but my stomach sickness comes back from all the pressure and the sickness, from all the pressure and the stress that I'm putting on myself. And one thing leads to the next, and I have a complete breakdown. I'm 19 years old, second year of university, and I hit rock bottom. And I had absolutely no idea how to get myself out of it. And really, my help showed up in the most unlikely of sources. And it came in the form of my dad, which is really bizarre because when I was growing up, my dad and I were like worst enemies. He's a guy who is like your typical my way or the highway kind of guy, you know what I mean when I say that? Where it's like everything's got to be his way, otherwise you can't live in his house. He was a stereotypical type A workaholic, ran the family steel business, driven by money and profit, and was very much a controlling guy. You had to fit in his box in order to have a relationship with him. And of course, as you know, for me, I didn't really fit in any box. But here's the thing with my dad. He gets to a point where he's 50 years old, and he accomplishes everything that he wanted to accomplish. All of the outer world successes. Ran a successful business, had the family, had the money, had the power, had the respect. But the one thing that he thought all of that was going to bring him didn't come. And that was happiness. So he starts to question the meaning behind everything that he had been seeking. Starts himself on this radical journey. Hires a life coach. Starts discovering himself in ways that couldn't even imagine. And within a year's time, completely turned his life around. A complete 180. And so I go home for the holidays, and I see a completely different man. And I'm like, what'd you do with my dad? Who is this guy? And I'm like, Dad, what are you on? Can I have some? He's like, well, son, I've changed the way that I'm thinking. I've changed the way that I'm speaking. I've changed the way that I'm acting. And if you want, I can teach you. My dad had just become a life coach himself. And it was seeing the change that he made in his life allowed me to put aside all those personal differences and sign up to become his first student. And I got a chance to start learning all of these new ways of living, new ways of thinking, new ways of speaking. My dad got a chance to learn how to be a life coach. And within 6 months of signing up to become his first student, my life completely changed. The depression was completely gone. The stomach sickness, thing of the past. And for the first time in my life, I was experiencing real happiness. Not happiness from the point where you say a joke and people laugh at you and you feel good, or not that kind of happiness where you bring home a really good grade and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then it's like, it doesn't last for longer than 3 hours or 3 days at most. I'm talking about real happiness. Happiness that you feel here for no reason. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share with you some of the things that I learned early on that I'm hoping that you can apply to your lives at this younger age so that you don't have to get to where I got to. So the first thing that I learned is that awareness creates choice, and choice creates change. Think about that, okay? You want to change something in your life. I was at a point where I wanted to change everything, but I didn't want to do any of the work in order to change it. The reality is that things won't change unless you are the one who makes the choice to do so. Nobody's going to come around, wave a magic wand, and say, you're fixed. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. We got to be the ones who make that choice. But before we're able to make really good, solid choices that really feed us in a positive way, we need to become more aware. We need to become aware of the thoughts we're thinking, the words we're speaking, and the actions we are taking. Because our thoughts become our words. Think about it. Anything that you say will have come from a previous thought that you thought about. Then your words become your actions. So you're thinking these thoughts, then you're speaking these words, and then your actions are reflecting the same thing. And these actions create your habits, and your habits create your destiny. So, bring it all back. I needed to start realizing if I was thinking positive thoughts or negative thoughts. Because my thoughts were creating my reality. My thoughts were creating my destiny. And I needed to recreate my destiny. So I started asking myself, am I thinking positive or am I thinking negative? Am I beating myself up or am I building myself up? These are questions that we all need to start asking ourselves. Because what's going on in our mind significantly affects what's going on out here. And I realized that my thoughts were creating my experiences. So if I was creating all of those really bad, unfortunate, negative feelings and experiences, then I also had the ability to create new, more positive, more happy ones. If I was creating depression, I could create happiness. If I was creating struggle, I could create ease. And a lot of it was coming from what was going on in my mind. So here's a very simple four-step process of how we can all become more aware of our thoughts and start to change our thoughts. So the first step is awareness. So what I recommend, what I did, what my dad got me to do, is he got me to write down my thoughts on a daily basis. So what I want you to do, every day for the next 7 days, I know, oh, he's giving us homework, okay? 7 days, that's it. Very simple. I want you to get yourself a journal. And I want you to write what's going on in your mind. First thing you do when you get home from school, I want you to write down your thoughts. Not your experiences, but your thoughts. What's going on in your head? That is going to allow you to give you that awareness. That awareness is what's going to give you that power to make a different choice. So we have our awareness. Second step is a field check. I then want you to go through and look at those thoughts, and I want you to ask yourself, how does that make me feel? So I'll give you an example. I'm writing down my thoughts. I'm writing down thoughts like, I suck, I'm not good enough, I'm going to fail, I'm useless, I'm not worthy. What are some other negative thoughts that we have on a semi-regular basis? What are some negative thoughts that you've ever had that go through your head? Anybody? Yeah. I messed up. Yeah. What else? Yeah. Should have said something differently. Yeah. What else? What are some negative thoughts that we have going through our minds? Anything at all. Safe space to share. It's a pretty positive room if there's no negative thoughts going through our minds. So I want you to write down those thoughts, and I want you to ask yourself how it makes you feel. And if it makes you feel bad, if it zaps your energy, if it makes you feel small, if it makes you feel tense, if it makes you feel worried, if it makes you feel stressed out, that's a very good indication that you need to change that thought. So the next step is to shift your perception. Change the way that you look at things, and the things you look at change. Say that again. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Think about that, okay? I'm going to give you an example. I used to have this thought that school was boring. Anybody else share that one? I heard a duh. Teachers, it's not about you, don't worry about it. We all have that thought. School is boring. At some point in time, I'm sure we've all had that thought, okay? So, here's the thing. If I'm constantly just focusing on school is boring, school is boring, school is boring, what's going to happen?
You're going to fail at school?
Well, you're most likely going to be bored at school, and it quite frankly could lead to that. What's going on in your mind is going to create how you're feeling. So, in order to change the way that I saw this thought, I had to change the way that I thought that I saw school. So what are some positive things that we get from coming to school? Yes. We learn. What else? Positive things that we get from coming to school. Get to see your friends. What else? Positive things that we get from coming to school. Come on. Meet new people. He's not the only one who likes positive things. What else? Something positive about school. Learn new things. Meet new people. Meet friends. Yeah. Say to 11. Gym. Absolutely. Extracurricular activities. Yeah. Recreate new things? Yes. Recess, that was my favorite part. Yep. Science experiments? Meeting your teachers? Yes. Look at all these positive things. You see what I just did? That was like at least 8 positive things that we like about school. One more. Good grades, you can get good grades and you feel good about yourself. Okay, so listen up. See, all of a sudden I just changed the way that I'm looking about school. Even just by talking about all the positive things that I like about school, that thought, school is boring, is not nearly as powerful anymore. And now, because I've changed the way that I'm looking at it, I can substitute that thought. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip school is boring into what? School is fun. What else? School is awesome. I learn amazing things at school. I open my mind at school. I meet new people at school. School is such an amazing opportunity. Now, my thought has changed. Do we see how this works? This can be done for every single thought that's going through your mind. Now, the reason why we do this, who's that guy up there? I'll be honest with you. I had no idea this picture was being taken of me. Okay? That caught me on a day where I'm feeling really good. And you want to know why I'm feeling good? Because my thoughts feel good. If I've got positive thoughts going through my mind, it feels good. When your thoughts feel good, you feel good. Here's an amazing video example of what I'm talking about. right? So here's the deal. If this little kid can have that positive attitude, then every single one of you can have that positive attitude. No matter what life deals you, no matter what your circumstances, you have the choice to respond. Sometimes we can't change our circumstances. The only thing that we can change is how we think about those circumstances, how we feel about those circumstances, how we respond to those circumstances. When you think in positive ways and you have a positive attitude and a positive outlook, then your greatest challenge doesn't become so bad. All of a sudden, the things that you were worrying about don't feel so bad. Next thing I want to talk to you about is being able to simplify our perspective on life. And this is what actually, quite frankly, allowed me to get over my stomach sickness. Okay? Because I was putting so much pressure on myself to get the results, to get the achievements. Whether I was in school, I needed to get the best grades. When I was on the basketball court, I needed to be the MVP. Everything was all about results, results, results. So what am I achieving? What am I earning? Never was I focusing on what am I learning? And how am I growing? I simplified my perspective on life, and I truly believe that the meaning of life is life equals learning plus growth. So what if I told you that all of those accomplishments, all of those achievements, all of those grades, all of those rewards, what if I told you they all meant nothing? And they meant nothing if you weren't learning and you weren't growing. But when you just focus on learning and just focus on growing, it takes the pressure off. I mean, think about it. How does it make you feel if I just told you that all you gotta do is learn and grow? Does it make you feel a little bit less stressed out? Does it take off a lot of that pressure? It did for me. It got rid of all that pressure. All that pressure. Now here's the ironic thing behind it all, is that as soon as I stopped striving to get good grades, and I stopped striving to get the results got better. Better than I could have ever imagined. But I was happy no matter what. I felt good about myself no matter what. Because I knew that I was learning, and I was growing, and I was fulfilling my purpose. Another part of this perspective is that I was so focused on the destination. When I get that next grade, I'll be happy. When I get past that next test, I'll be less stressed out. It was always the next, the next. Anybody else think that way? It's like, when I get past that next thing, I'll be okay. Yeah? When I get to that next place, I'll be okay. Then I can give myself the place to be happy. Well, the challenge is that what happens is we develop this attitude where we're always striving towards getting something and never actually getting it. So you're always striving and never arriving. Yeah, I know, I just rhymed. I'm a poet and I don't know it. Here's the beautiful thing. When we focus on the journey, when we focus on what we're learning along the way, it's like life just becomes so much better. I took the significance off the tests, I took the significance off the sports games, I took the significance off of everything. And I just put it on how am I learning and how am I growing. And life completely transformed. I truly believe that if you just take a piece of this and you apply that, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The last thing I want to share with you is it's how we feel about ourselves is the most important thing. What's the first word in self-esteem? Okay, come on. The first word in self-esteem is self. So, here's a question. If the first word in self-esteem is self, then why do we let so many other people in our lives determine how we feel about ourselves? Why do we give them that power? The thing is this. We're all born with the natural ability to love, respect, and value ourselves. If you don't believe me, go spend some time with a 2-year-old. They've got no problem looking at themselves in the mirror and saying, how much they love themselves. They've got no problem speaking and acting in whatever way they please, not worried about what other people think. They're living freely because they love themselves and they feel amazing about themselves. My little niece, Willow, she's 3 years old, she teaches me this every single day. She reminds me. She reminds me that we have that capacity, we have that ability to be kind to ourselves, to love ourselves, to respect ourselves, to value ourselves. We've just forgotten. Why? Because from the moment that we hear the words no, from the moment we hear the words you're wrong, and from the moment we hear the words you're not doing it right, you got to do it this way, we start to question ourselves. We question ourselves, we question our thinking, we question our speaking, we question our acting. And what happens? We give our power to that person who's telling us. And then what happens is you get to exactly your age. This is a beautiful age that you guys are at. Why? Because you're starting to really carve out who you are and what you're here for. But the interesting thing is that you need that self-esteem and you need that self-worth. And you, amongst everybody in our society, is looking for it in the wrong place. We're trying to get it back from everybody outside of ourselves. It's like we're walking around with an empty tin cup. We all have this tin cup, and we're begging people. Can you give me love? Can you give me respect? Can you encourage me? Can you validate me? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Please, somebody like me. We might not be doing that directly, but indirectly, that's what's happening. But the challenge is that even when they give it to you, your cup is never going to feel full. You're always going to need more. And here's an example. When you bring that good grade home, how do you feel? Pretty awesome, right? How long does it last? 2 hours? 2 minutes? 2 days if we're lucky, right? Then what happens? We're focusing on the next one. We're focusing on the next accomplishment, the next result. It's never enough. When somebody laughs at your joke, you feel amazing. And then you immediately go into, I better come up with something funny to say again. We're not actually feeling truly good about ourselves. Here's what we need to do. Self-esteem begins with yourself. As I said, the first word in self-esteem is self. We need to turn it around. We need to start giving ourselves that love. We need to start giving ourselves that respect. If we give it to ourselves and we fill up our own cup, as within, so without, when we feel it within here, we give it out here. And that's the beautiful thing about self-esteem, is that when we truly fill our self-esteem up from within ourselves, our cup overflows. And we've got so much more to give to everybody. Picture the worst day that you've ever had. Okay? Now someone comes up to you and asks you for something. And you're feeling really bad. Usually the first answer that's going to want to come out of your mouth is, no way. I can't give you that. You can't give what you don't have. You can't give what you don't have. You can't love somebody if you don't love yourself. You can't respect somebody if you don't respect yourself. You can't be kind to other people if you're not kind to yourself. So we all have to start giving to ourselves what we're looking for from everybody else. We're not going to depend on it anymore if we do that. Life's going to be truly amazing once we start to do that. So I want to leave you with something practical, because I've planted a lot of seeds. I've thrown a lot of different ways of thinking out at you. And I know when I was used to... Wait 1 second. You got a question?
Yeah.
Okay, what's up?
You know when you're always choosing destination is not destination, it's just using your bottle of shot.
Very wise. Like you don't actually get to the destination, right? Yeah. So when you choose to focus on the destination, this is really great. When you choose to focus on the destination, it's like, it's imaginary. It's like the destination doesn't actually exist. It's like you never actually get there. You're totally right. But when you focus on the journey, what happens when you focus on the journey? Yeah. On the experiences along the way. on what you're learning and growing along the way, how do you think things are going to change for you? Yeah, it's going to become a lot better for you, right? I'll take a little bit of questions at the end, okay? So, toolbox of practices, very quick. I want to give you something practical. I want to give you something that you can take these new ways of thinking and put them into action in your lives. So the first thing is positive affirmations. An affirmation is every single word we speak and every single thought that we think. So if we're speaking negative words and thinking negative thoughts, most likely it's going to create negative experiences. So we need to turn that around. How you start your day is how you live your day, and how you live your day is how you live your life. So you want to know what I do every single morning, first thing when I wake up? I give a nice big stretch, and I thank my bed for a good night's sleep. That's right. I thank my bed. I say, thank you, bed, for a good night's sleep. And I know you think I'm pretty weird and kind of odd to be saying that, but you know what? It feels amazing. Even if you're tired and you don't want to go to school, it's like when you immediately start with something positive, you're going to feel amazing. Then what I do is I take myself out of bed and I march myself in front of the mirror and I look at myself and I don't say, oh, what's that mark on my face, or oh. I don't say any of that. I look at myself and I honestly look in my eyes genuinely and say, I love you, Michael. I really, really love you. I'm not kidding. But it is funny. But I want you to try it. I want you to get yourself out of bed and I want you to focus on something that you really like about yourself and I want you to say it to yourself. Look at yourself deep in the eyes and you're probably going to laugh and you're probably going to feel a little bit awkward, but if you do it a few times, you're actually going to start to feel it. When you say it 10 times, you're actually going to start to believe it. And when you believe it, things are going to change. Things are going to change in a big way for you. So what I want you to do every single day, think of 3 new things that you like about yourself. Just 3. 3 things that you like about yourself every day. But 3 new things for 7 days. 21 new things that you're going to like about yourself in 1 week's time. Do you know how powerful that's going to be? It's going to be amazing. The next practice that I want to leave you with is an attitude of gratitude, and we already kind of touched on this. When we focus on the things that we don't like, on the things that aren't going right in our lives, then we're going to get more of that. So what I want you to do is I want you to focus on all the things that you're thankful for. We have a tendency to focus on what we don't like instead of what we do. We tend to focus on what we don't have instead of what we do. Yeah. Yeah, if you do something good and you mess up, you tend to focus on the mess up instead of what you did good. So what I want you to do next time that happens is focus on the good. Focus on the good all the time. Focus on what you're grateful for all the time. There are things that we take advantage of and take for granted that many people in many countries don't have. Clean water, houses to live in, schools to be educated in, clothes to wear. These are things that we're not even really appreciating on a daily basis. I want you to start focusing on all the things that you already have and already are. And then it becomes your attitude. And then it starts to change your experiences. Last couple things, meditation, very simple. The way I teach meditation, it's not sitting cross-legged on a pillow and going, Om. That's not the way that I teach meditation. Meditation is just slowing down your mind. So whether it's going for a walk in nature or putting on a CD of some soft music, I want you to find that space where you can turn your head off. I actually have a free audio guided meditation on my website. I'm going to put up the information in a moment. If you go to youthwellnessnetwork.ca, you can put in your name and email address, and you can get this free 15-minute meditation, and you can play it, and you can just sit anywhere. You can play it on your iPod, you can listen to it on the bus, wherever, and it's going to help you get really calm, and it's going to help you slow down your mind. And last but not least is journaling. As I mentioned, with your thoughts, I want you to write down those thoughts every day. Get them out of your head. When our trash bins in our houses get overflow with garbage, what happens? It stinks. Same thing happens in your head. When you don't dump those negative thoughts from your head, it gets real stinky in there. So what I want you to do is take the trash out of your mind, and I want you to write down what you're thinking every single day. I'm going to leave you with one last positive video. It's a quiet video, so. Can you hear it okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know, you'll probably be about as good as I was. That's kind of the way it works, and I was below average, so, so you'll probably ultimately rank somewhere around there, so really, you'll sell a lot of things, just not this. I don't want you out here shooting the ball around all day and night, all right? Okay? All right, good. Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me. All right? You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.
One last thing. Okay? I want you to remember that when you're feeling down, when you're feeling like nothing can get better, you don't know how to get yourself out of how you're feeling, when you feel like all your greatest dreams aren't going to come true, when you feel like life is working against you, I want you to remember this. Your power exists in your choice. Nothing else. It is your choice that determines your experiences, and it is your experiences that determine your destiny. You choose who you want to be. You choose what you're going to do for this world. So please, please, make every choice count. Thank you very much.